Well, next tonight, a question. Is our economy just too dependent on migration? Well, tonight we are on a Nottinghamshire vegetable farm that's hiring workers from Central Asia. Now, their boss tells us that without them, well, our shopping bills would absolutely soar. But an academic says that migrant labour's making life harder for working class communities. And tens of thousands of overseas students are boosting our migration numbers too. Our social affairs correspondent Jeremy Ball reports.
Growing cabbages for our supermarkets at Ravenshead in Nottinghamshire, this netting's to protect them from birds. Dozens of seasonal workers from Tajikistan are here on 6-month visas. For Ilham John, it means another winter away from his wife and 3 children. He even missed the birth of his baby son while he was working here last year.
I have big family. I'm earning my money here and come back to home 6 months, relax with my family. You know, everybody need work and money.
When Ilham John's son was born last year, it was fantastic to be around him, to have him within the business and see the elation despite him being thousands of miles from home.
John used to recruit Ukrainians and Russians, but they stopped coming when their countries went to war. John's Polish manager's been here so long that his teenage son was born here.
When they was younger, they was always planning to come back to Poland as soon as possible, but now it's changed.
It's Nottinghamshire home now?
Yeah. That's my home.
It's extremely difficult to find UK nationals that actually want to and are prepared to do this kind of work for the remuneration that we can offer. It's very physical, it's very physically demanding.
So if you didn't have these workers from overseas, what would that mean to us as consumers?
We'd be more reliant on imported food, and without any shadow of a doubt, the cost of our weekly shop would go through the roof. It would skyrocket.
A few miles away, Sports Direct made Shirebrook a magnet for migrant workers who settled here. So how do people there see the impact almost 2 decades on?
They've took our jobs, haven't they? I mean, it's not our jobs, but we class it as our jobs.
They're not, because the people in Shirebrook didn't want those jobs.
A lot of British people, we don't want work. I can get benefits.
I would never work anywhere where the people weren't talking English for a start.
I'm from Ghana. Yeah, I live in Shirebrook. It's like a family. Everyone knows everyone, and they will just give you a really big hug, and then you are welcome to the community.
It's not the old Shirebrook we used to know. It used to be really friendly, but you've got to be careful where you go now.
Lisa Mackenzie's an academic. She's spent years studying communities in Nottinghamshire.
If you live out in West Bridgford, what you might find is that the cheap migrant labour that has come in over the last 20 years are very useful to you. You might find that your patio can be done cheaper. It does affect working class communities differently. The narrative is that things are not fair, because what is happening is with low-skilled migrant labour coming over, they come straight in at the bottom, which means what they're doing now is they're in competition for jobs, for healthcare, for housing, but the services that we've got, they can't cope with it.
Those migration numbers are highest in our cities, where they're boosted by overseas students. Our universities are heavily dependent on their higher tuition fees.
New student accommodation is being built across Nottingham.
Rinny came to Nottingham Trent for a master's in TV journalism.
It was the best thing that has ever happened.
Now she's gone back to Calcutta.
I stepped out of my comfort zone, 8,000 miles away. My family members started telling me within 3 months, hey, you're glowing. So that glow, that inner happiness that I'm finally doing it. It is expensive. Despite the loans, almost 7 of us were Indians, 7 of us were British students. How did we become the best of friends? All of us, we really have the dream to make it big.
Oh, really good speaking to us there from Calcutta. Jeremy, as you can see, is back in the studio. So, first question, where are most of these overseas students coming from?
Well, the largest group is Indian students like Rinny there. After that, Chinese and Nigerian. And the numbers rose for several years, Anne, across our 6 universities. The latest official figures are from a couple of years ago. Now, they show more than 39,000 East Midlands students came from overseas. That is around 1 in 4 of all uni students here. We are expecting those numbers to fall following those tighter visa rules. That will cut the immigration figure. It is also raising concerns, though, about whether universities might need to cut jobs too, because, as you know, their finances are really stretched at the moment.
No, we've been hearing about that, haven't we? And I mean, there's also huge political pressure to make the economy less dependent upon migration. I mean, what's the options with regard to that?
There's some interesting debates around at the moment about whether, for instance, you can get more British people off benefits and back into work, whether you can use more automation, and also whether migration's become a bit of a quick fix to cut the cost of training. A big debate too about which jobs and salary levels ought to qualify for these visas. And I think, you know, that big question from the start, have we simply become too dependent on migrant workers? So I put that to a leading business group, and they say these new visa restrictions mean some firms are actually struggling now to fill vacancies.
It's everything from hospitality through to things like the NHS, academia, and it's skills at every level.
And you know, the concern from some people is that migrant labour is driving down pay and conditions for British workers. Do you agree with that?
I think it's really difficult to point to any evidence. We have some sectors which, we hear about the care sector quite often not necessarily being particularly well remunerated. Clearly there'll be a preference for local employees, but if that can't be satisfied, business will look where it needs to look, whether that's Europe, whether it's wider across the whole world.
What's the long-term impact then on workers that they do recruit?
Well, people often end up staying here much longer than they expect and having kids here and building lives here. Think of, South Asian or Caribbean communities who've been so much part of our cities for decades now. And there has been quite a lot of research about their impact on public finances. Now, the general thrust is that higher earners they're very likely to be net contributors to the economy. There is a but. Very low paid workers might actually pay too little tax to cover the cost of the services their families use. So there is a mixed picture here. One other question, what happens when they get old too? Who's going to support their retirement?
I can't answer that question, Jeremy, but thank you very much. It's so interesting. Thank you.